What's going on, guys? I'm back with another Valentine's Day review, and today we're going to be talking about a film I'm sure you've all seen before, but it's a good film to revisit once in a while, especially around this time of the year, The Fault in Our Stars. So right off the bat, to me, this film can be a pretty mixed bag. It has its highs, but it certainly has its lows. When it comes to the story, by now, you probably already know what the premise is, whether you've seen the film or read the book, but what the story does well is illustrate some pretty deep messages about, no matter what, life is worth living, mixing with a lot of subtle symbolisms through actions and cheeky pieces of dialogue. Another piece of the story that I enjoyed was the constant conflicts that arise, basically right from the open frame. You have the premise of our two leads having cancer, then you have Shailene Woodley having to carry around an oxygen tank for her whole life, Ansel Elgort, you know what I mean, having a prosthetic leg, problems with their genie wishes, and so much more, so the plot is always moving with things going on. The film jumps around from being unorthodox to formulaic, although it tries its best to be original, especially with the aid of the twist that unfolds come the third act of the film, that really does a nice job tugging at the heartstrings and engaging the audience. As far as the characters go, the story is fine for what it is, but to me, the movie only goes as far as it does because of our two leads in Shailene Woodley and Ansel Elgort, you know what I mean. They are by far the driving force of the film. Their performances were very natural, and a lot of that has to do with the chemistry between them. Both characters are pretty well-rounded, having some pretty interesting layers, which help make their bond very well recognized, where it had this almost sweet and sour touch to it due to the conflicting personalities that they have. Their relationship was a weird mix of a slow burn tale, but set at a fast pace because, as mentioned, the plot was always moving and unfolding something new. Individually, this may be a semi-hot take, so bear with me, but Shailene Woodley's character was certainly good. I'd even say she was great. But through a fair portion of the movie, she was sort of unpleasant and almost off-putting. But to be fair, I also see that as the truth behind being constantly sick and really having no true cure for the sickness. But come later on in the film, her character became something rather pleasant, comforting, and also impactful, which I thought was a very nice touch. Then when it came to Ansel's character, he was almost the polar opposite, being fun, optimistic, funny, inventive, and everything else in between. I thought Woodley had the better character moments and more opportunity to shine, but Ansel did a fine job in his role as well, where the characters were this sort of like yin and yang, and that's mostly why it worked the way that it did. When it comes to the script, like the story, it very much had its ups, but also its downs. As mentioned, the heights of the movie reached was due to our lead characters, so when they had opportunities to bounce off one another, which was pretty often, their pieces of dialogue and banter worked very well for the most part. They hit some really good emotional beats as well, where they certainly tugged at the heartstrings on numerous occasions. But when it comes to the lows, the way the film was written, you can certainly tell it was adapted from a book, because there was a lot of exposition and explaining going on, where some of the pieces of dialogue felt like they came straight out of the book, along with how the film moved along as well. Some pieces come off pretty sappy and stale, which really made you feel the extended runtime. Although this film had its high moments with its messages and character moments, there are more than a couple things that didn't really sit well with me, outside of some of the things I already mentioned. For starters, my biggest issue, and maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace to watch this film at the time I did, but overall, it just felt like a big poor me sob story. Now, cancer is such a real thing and has affected millions of families, mine as well, so I can certainly sympathize with it. But to me, the film doesn't really have a lot of style to it. It tried to go against the grain as much as possible, which was appreciated, but it couldn't help but fall into some tropes to help bring the film down. My next issue, which I've already somewhat hinted at, is the pacing and the story structure. Although there's valuable information being shared, the film just drags on for too long, especially the whole holiday trip. It made for great character moments and momentum shifts, but it just went on for a bit too long for my money. And my last issue, outside of the nitpicks, was the execution at the twist. Although it works for what it is, I just wish it was set up a bit better, because everything was thrown right in your face before anything happened. It didn't come as much as a surprise, so when it happened, it sort of felt like inevitable. Overall, the first few times that I watched this film, I feel like I enjoyed it more than this time around, because this time it just felt too sappy and just too by the numbers at some points. I definitely appreciated the character moments and messages at hand, but it just didn't really tip the scale when it comes to making a great film. The Fault in Our Stars gets a 6 out of 10 from me. Let me know what you think about The Fault in Our Stars in the comments below, and let me know what film you'd like to see me review next. See you guys in the next one.